Great or overrated? Today we're looking at Spider Noir. People online were saying this was a 9 out of 10. It was as good as Netflix Daredevil, which to me is the pinnacle of superhero TV shows. So that is a big claim. And I went and watched it there the other day. And I just want to give my thoughts here. Was it great? Was it overrated? What was bad? What was good? We're going to start off with the good because it's always great to start on a positive note. And I hope you can come along for this video. If you disagree with me, leave some comments. If you agree with me, leave a comment. Or maybe I just changed your mind. I'd love to hear about it. So let's dive in with what was good about Spider Noir. So when looking at this show and looking at the good, one of the things I noticed early on that I really enjoyed personally throughout the show, but really kicked off in episode 1, was the web swinging and the use of webs throughout the show as well. But let's start off with the web swinging first. I loved how natural it looked. It just felt normal, and it felt like it matched Spider Noir's vibe as a Spider-Man. Like, you get like Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man, he's very zany and wacky, and he's flying around with these incredible kind of moves with the web swinging. And this guy was more just simplistic, like swinging from place to place, and it just felt really, I don't know what it was, simplistic but well done. Like, I wouldn't have wanted Spider Noir to be flying around all over the place with his webbing. It just wouldn't have suited the character that they were trying to deliver in this show. And I think maybe it was a budget thing. That's why he didn't look like he was flying around all over the place. But for me, it really matched the tone that they were trying to deliver with the character. So I was very happy with that. On top of that, I think we see a lot of superhero shows where the superpowered person never uses his superpowers in situations outside of action. He constantly uses his webs, or not constantly, but throughout the show uses his webbing in other situations to get out of situations. Whether it was at one point he's hanging something out of a window with his webbing, at one point he like locks a closet that he's in with his webbing. It was just these little intelligent moments throughout the show with his webbing that I really particularly enjoyed, because again, you see superheroes all the time with these superpowers that they just do not utilize, and this show managed to get them used throughout the show and throughout the season, and I was very impressed with that. On the topic of talking about Spider Noir's abilities such as web shooting, they also did a brilliant job in the show of delivering his spider senses. You know, generally spider senses, when shown on a Spider-Man throughout any media, is sort of a tool used to dodge or to perceive an action before it happens, you know, like a gun being shot at him and then him dodging it. In this show, it was more used as like a way for him to be a detective or to feel sort of intrigue or sneakiness going on around him. And I know I've seen it used that way in the comics and in other media, but it's still got that action link tied into the ability, the spider sense. Whereas in this show, he gets kind of hit and attacked from behind constantly. I don't really think there was a moment I can remember from a fight scene where the spider sense kicked in while he was fighting. It was always kind of shown as sort of a tool used again for intrigue or sneakiness when something else was going on around him, or maybe somebody would be, you know, in his building. It was a little bit inconsistently used, I would say that. Like, you know, in moments he would be sensing things and then he wouldn't sense anything when someone else was sneaking. So a little bit strangely used, but I like the way they attempted to deliver it in this show, and just they put a bit of a different spin on it, and I think that was refreshing. This show really heavily attempted to be a comedy show. It didn't matter whether the scene was serious, unserious, it was gonna throw a joke at you. Every episode had like 100 jokes in it, but the important thing is, and what makes a show good, or at least while this is in the good section, is 90 out of those 100 jokes would land. They would be funny. Of course, there were moments where, you know, when you tell this many jokes, the joke didn't land or it just wasn't very funny. And again, that's subjective. Some people would have said 100 out of 100 jokes are funny. Some people are going to say 50 out of 100 were funny. But I think if you were to take a step back and go, was that an objectively funny thing to say? Or was that like a well-timed comedic moment? You would say majority of the time it was well delivered and well landed. And I think when you look at the cast of this TV show, you've got Nick Cage, Cameron Morris. I think the comedy was the right move. I don't think a lot of the actors that were in this show, and not all of them, because I'm about to dive into the next section here where we do talk about the good acting, but a lot of the actors in this show are not good at serious scenes, and I think having these comedic scenes, having these funny moments was really good for the actors that they decided to pick for the show. And look, I'm sure that was their vision, and I'm just going to sound like a moron just pointing out the obvious, but yeah. Diving in with my next thing that I really enjoyed, Brendan Gleeson as Silvermane was fantastic. Easily the best actor in this show. And I'm not just saying that because I'm Irish. Like, he outperformed everyone to such a high level. He was brilliantly delivered. All his lines, the comedy, all of it was brilliantly delivered. He had the ability that the other actors lacked for me, where whether the scene was serious or unserious, he was still acting well. Some of the other actors, and again, in the negative section, we'll dive more into this, just couldn't hold themselves in a serious scene. You could just kind of see the levels, unfortunately. And he just really performed excellently. And again, not just because he's Irish, but the other facet of his character that I loved, as an Irish person, he said Irish stuff. You know, a lot of times we see actors who are Irish playing Irish characters in a show, and they never say a line that an Irish person would actually say. This guy constantly had really, really funny Irish slang within his dialogue, and I just was really happy with that. The final two things I want to praise about this show was the black and white filming was fantastic. What a brilliant homage to like old classic movies. I was really happy with that. I really believe you need to watch this in black and white. You can tell the directors were trying to deliver scenes in black and white from the way it was shot and filmed. And I think if you were to watch it in color, the show is probably going to seem much weaker than it is due to that. I could definitely see people who watched it in colored versions going, "This show is ass," to be honest, because I really think the black and white does a lot for this show, but I think that's intentional. So I do recommend the black and white version. And I think the other thing they did really well, again, goes hand in hand with the black and white, is time period. They really well delivered it. The only weak area of it was the accents. You could tell a lot of the actors did not know how to do like a 1920s, 1930s American sort of accent. They were really poorly delivered. It kind of played into the comedic element of the show, though, so I think I'll leave it off. Like, I won't say it as a major criticism. That's why it's not fallen into the negative section. Is yes, the accents weren't fantastic, but again, you could kind of almost add that in as sort of the comedic element of the show, so it's not too bad. That's all I have to say that was good about the show. Quite a few things there that were good about it. And even when I go into the negative section here, there will be moments where I go, hey, look, I didn't like this, but there was these good elements of it, so it wasn't all bad, but they're just more negative than positive, I think, is how I'll look at those kind of scenes or whatever section I talk about. So let's dive in with the negatives of this show. So what didn't work in this show? Well, straight away for me, the action scenes were extremely poor. It felt like a single stuntman was not used. It was awful. The megawatt fight in particular was one of the worst action scenes I've ever seen in a superhero TV show, and people were comparing the show to Daredevil. Remember that, Netflix Daredevil, which has, in my opinion, the best action scenes we've ever seen. Maybe in superhero movies in general, but definitely in TV shows, superhero TV shows. So to compare this show, I think it's a complete disservice and disrespect to Daredevil, to be quite honest with you. But the megawatt fight was horrendous. Spider Noir in that fight jumps from a lecturable object, is that what you call it? An object that can be electrified, whether it was a metal car or a metal pole or a metal piece of the wall. He just kept jumping to all the metal objects, and obviously Megawatt, the electric bad guy, just kept electrifying them. It made no sense. The fight scene was horrendously thought out. At one point, he falls on the ground. By the way, it hasn't been raining. There's been no sign it's been raining. And there's a puddle, the only puddle around, underneath Noir, and then there's a puddle at Megawatt's feet. They're the only two puddles, and they're connected by a stream of water. No water anywhere else in the scene, by the way. Again, like, really want to be clear on that. And so then he gets to electrify him through the water. It's the writing for the fighting scenes was horrendous. Items would just show up in these fight scenes that were nowhere there before. It was really bad. And then this show as well had this really weird thing where it would be like, I don't know how to describe this, but like through all the fight scenes, it was very much like the punches felt like they had no effect. Like, nothing felt punchy, nothing felt particularly violent, no one's arms were getting ripped off or broken or anything. And then randomly, like, there was just this one episode where there's like a ton of body horror. Like, a ton of body horror. Like, we were seeing like Nick Cage get ripped open and spiders crawling out of him. It was quite disgusting, to be honest. People were getting jabbed in the eye with needles. It was disgusting. It's absolutely disgusting. And I was like, why have you now only shown us body horror? Like, all these fight scenes, if you're gonna go for this level of, body horror, again, you're gonna see these really visceral things. Why not have the fight scenes have that level of body horror? Like, why not show Nick Cage breaking an arm as Spider-Man, show that he has some strength? Because again, throughout the show, it never looked like he had super strength. Every moment I was like, oh, super strength would be good here. He never used it, and I was like, oh, maybe he just doesn't have super strength. They kind of established, or almost tried to establish, that he doesn't have super strength. And then randomly later on in the show, he just grabs two cars with his webbing and smashes them together with his super strength. And I'm like, this fucker was handcuffed in one scene and could do nothing. And I know there's going to be someone like, oh, well, he was weakened by the drugs. I'm like, but all the other scenes where he could have used super strength, he never did. Like, I've never seen him use super strength. And then he just randomly starts having super strength. It was, the action scenes were just so poorly thought out. It's so disappointing. I've seen some people online say like, oh, it's just media literacy. That's why you don't like the action scenes, because the show's not trying to have good action scenes. That's just lazy. That's just fucking lazy. It's a superhero show. It needs to have good action scenes. You can't have action scenes that don't make sense, for one, and two, don't feel punchy when you're gonna have, again, body horror. Like, don't have body horror and have these really visceral scenes if you're not gonna have visceral scenes in the action. That's where I want to see the visceral shit. And also, don't forget, a big reason people like superheroes is action. So, like, really a mistake to not have good action scenes. The other part of the show that was awful, any love scene involving Kat Hardy felt terrible. I did not believe she was in love with anyone. Like, any scene she had with Nick Cage, where she randomly just fell in love with him, by the way, because she just lost her other love interest, was terrible. She fell in love with 3 people in this movie. She had a doctor she was in love with, then she was in love with Flip Marko, then she was in love with Ben, then she was back in love with Flip Marko again. Awful, awful character. I mean, just uninteresting. Like, nothing about her character stood out as interesting to me at all. She was just sort of there to be like eye candy, I guess. I genuinely just a disservice to the character itself. Yeah, and every love scene she was in, I was just not convinced she was in love with any character, because they did a lot of telling but not showing us. You need to show me a character's in love. You can't just tell me, oh, I've loved you for 10 years. It's like, show me on the screen with your acting and your dialogue and all these other things that you get to use. You're telling a story. Tell me the story. Convince me of these things, The show just did not do that. Then we go into the villains. Every single villain, all their plots were extremely weak. Like, extremely weak. They were absolutely ridiculous. Tombstone, Megawatt, Flint Marko, Sandman, all of them were stupid. So Tombstone and Flint Marko didn't even want to join the gang. They didn't want to be evil. They didn't want to do bad things. And then both of them were just like, yeah, we're cool at murder now. You know, just from one episode to the next. Yeah, we don't mind. You murder people, Megawatt. You murder people in front of us. We don't give a shit. We don't care. Who cares about writing? Who gives a fuck, you know? And then at the end, they both just get to go free, as if they weren't involved with like murdering police officers throughout the episodes and stuff. I'm like, what? Like, you just get to be like, people are just like, it's cool you murder those police officers. It's all right. It's fine. It just, there was just no thought process put into them at all. They just wanted some iconic villains, and that was it. No thought process put into them. Megawatt as well was one of the I hated that character. I don't know what they were trying to do with him. This like weird like poetic Megawatt played by an actor who does not have this in his range at all. It's one of the worst acting performances I've ever seen for a villain. It was hard to watch. I don't know if it was meant to be hard to watch and cringy. Maybe that was the idea, because it was hard to watch and extremely cringy. Very unhappy with how they handled the villains. All of their plot lines sucked ass. Then we have just the general story and plot itself were lazy. Not just the villains, but like generally what was going on was extremely lazy. Like, they did that thing that they do in every superhero show with 8 episodes. In episode 7, he's like doubting himself. He's like, oh, I don't know if I want to be a hero. You know, I don't want to be a hero. I'm selfish. I don't care about people. It's like, if I had a fucking penny for every time the second last episode of a season involving a superhero had them doubting them being a superhero, I would be fucking a multimillionaire. It's so boring. Stop. I want to see a superhero who's confident about being a superhero, who I don't have to wait 50 fucking episodes for, just for them to actually put on their suit and do some badass shit. I think I'm here to watch him be a badass. I'm not here to watch him mope around every episode. It's so boring. I get why he was moping early on this season, but at this stage he'd already done a bunch of heroic actions. Why is he still fucking moping? I was so fed up of it. So fed up of it. Like, and other just really silly scenes, like Kat is walking after the villain when she wants to go and murder him, and he's just walking away from her, and I'm like, why are these two people walking? Like, you're trying to murder him, he knows you're trying to murder him, and you're just about like a horror movie villain walking away from each other down a corridor. Like, what is going on? Just, again, terrible writing to build suspense, but doesn't build suspense, just makes me sit there and fucking eye roll. And then probably the most criminal scene in this show, because it made no sense the more you watch the show, is at one point they pull a dead body out of the morgue, and Joe Robertson goes to Nick Cage's character Ben Reilly, turn around, you're not going to want to see this. And it was just a guy with 3 bullet holes in him. And we then later established that Nick Cage's character Ben Reilly has been to fucking World War One, but we somehow were trying to establish that this character didn't want to see violent stuff or like a dead body. Like, what is the logic? Like, there's no logic. It was just put in there. Again, for suspense, I don't know. On top of that, that guy who was shot had flame abilities, and he like is gonna fight this guy who has a gun and flames up and then walks towards him and just gets shot and killed. And I'm like, if you had flame abilities and you knew you were bulletproof, would you just flame up and walk at a guy with a gun? No. Again, scene didn't make sense. But I could keep going on about scenes that didn't make sense, because this show constantly established that characters didn't like the color purple, and in the next episode they'd be wearing purple. That isn't a literal scene, by the way. It's just an analogy for how the characters acted in this show really, really poorly. And then finally, I briefly touched on it, but any acting for any serious scene was so bad. Nick Cage is a horrendously shit actor when it comes to acting in a serious scene. I'm really sorry. I absolutely love the nostalgia vibe of the original Ghost Rider, but holy fuck is he bad in that movie as well. Like, he's not a good actor, guys. I'm sorry to break that to you. Like, the comedic moments sure were funny, but as a modern actor, he just does not live up to it. He does not land it. And any serious scene with him, like the love scenes, all of it was terrible. I think part of this was the dialogue and the way they tried to put comedy in every scene, but part of it was just bad acting. And Cameron Morris as well, I loved him in Broke Girls. I think he's so good. Is that the thing he's in? He's in a show that I really liked him in, where they're living in the apartment together with the other guys and the girl. Whatever show that was, I'll put up on the screen. I think it's Broke Girls. He's really, really good in that. He's really funny. And even in this show, he's really, really funny. But he's not good in serious scenes. He just cannot land it. I can see why he has not really got any roles where I've seen him as a serious actor, because he just isn't capable of that, in my opinion. He just couldn't deliver those lines. Every scene that was meant to have tension or seriousness with him in it didn't deliver well. And that was kind of across the board for most of the actors. They're just the two I can think of that were really poor. So that concludes the negatives and the positives. It's very clear to see that I thought this show was overrated. I do not believe it's a 9 out of 10. I would probably give it like a 6 out of 10. And I think the reason I put it at a 6 out of 10 is, if I was to grab somebody, one of my friends who isn't a big Marvel fan but watches the occasional Marvel thing, and I was to show him this show, he would say something similar. He would go 5, 6 out of 10, because that's what this show is. Like, it is not a 9 out of 10. People online going, it's peak TV, you need to watch this, you're giving people false expectations. And this is why Marvel and Sony and these places are struggling with their movies and TV shows, because you're setting people up to not like these things by overrating them. That's what you're causing. When people go in with this impression this is going to be a 9 out of 10 and then it's a 6, they go, oh, if this is what people think is good, good comic book movies or TV shows, then Jesus, the other ones must be completely shit. That is what the problem is. If you did disagree with me, please feel free to leave a comment. Just don't bother if it's a comment's going to be, this show's actually really good. Like, tell me why I'm wrong. Explain to me. Use a scene that proves the point I made wrong. Please, I'd really appreciate that. And I might be wrong, but if you're just going to say it's good, that's not really going to do much. And if you did like what I said, or I changed your mind, or I made you maybe have a bit more of a think about this show, then please also leave a comment. Please do subscribe. We're trying to hit 10 subscribers. We're very early on into our YouTube journey. We're going to be doing a shit ton of Marvel content over the summer. I'm going to be trying to cover everything from Marvel to DC to Star Wars. Really try and cover all the topics and give my fair and honest opinion about this, but definitely not sugarcoat it the way a lot of Marvel fan channels do, in my opinion, where they just sit there and tell you that everything that comes out of Marvel's asshole is sunshine and rainbows. We're not going to be doing that here. So best of luck with your day, guys, and see you later.